This is KSDB 91.9 Manhattan, Kansas. You're listening to What's Happening in Your World. This is Erica from What's Happening in Your World on 91.9 KSDB, the show that highlights all the cool things you're doing in the world and brings you the music that inspires it all. Always know that you can stream us online at ksdbfm.org. Our website, a great source for music reviews, DJ reviews, local and national news, or if you haven't already, download the KSDB radio app. So no matter where you are part of the conversation. Follow KSDB on Twitter, and you can even follow What's Happening at WHIYW, so you'll never miss an episode of What's Happening with yours truly. Today on What's Happening, we are going to explore what motivates you to get up, get out, and get moving. When was the last time you said, hey, I'm going to take the stairs? Or decided you would walk instead of driving? We are coming into the last month of summer before a lot of us go back into the classroom. And to help us take advantage of all those daylight hours, we have K-State's director of the Digital Physical Activity Laboratory, Dr. Brandon Irwin. He is professor in the Department of Kinesiology at the College of Human Ecology and is interested in understanding what social influences keep the body and mind healthy. He also recently came back from an adventurous summer trip that we'll find out more about later on in the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Irwin, for being on the show.
Hey, good to be here.
So tell us more about the Digital Physical Activity Laboratory. It's quite a mouthful.
It is, and it might not even make any grammatical sense, but it's really sort of the intersection of a couple different interests that I have, one of them being technology. And the other, which really isn't represented in the title, which is sort of how other people influence physical activity, right? Like your friends or your family, for example. And we try to sort of ask questions in the laboratory and answer questions in the laboratory that, deal with one or both of those things.
All right. So what kinds of questions are you trying to answer?
Well, the big picture question is, what motivates people to be physically active? Mm-hmm. And there's no real simple answer to that. And I've kind of decided to take a little chunk of that question and ask a little bit simpler one, which is, well, how do other people how do other people motivate you, or how do other people influence your physical activity behavior? And so a few of the things that we've been doing lately, we've done a number of studies looking at how exercise partners can influence your motivation, mostly while you're exercising.
Okay.
And there's some pretty good evidence out there showing that, if you're going to get any real health benefits out of being active, you really need to do it at a certain level of intensity. You don't have to go all out, right, all the time, but enough so that you're working up a little bit of a sweat. And sometimes it can be hard to achieve that level of intensity, and so working out with a partner can help you achieve that. And we've been kind of looking at well, under what conditions does that partner motivate you while you're exercising. We've looked at a few other things as well, but that's pretty much the main one.
And what sorts of things have you found out?
Yeah, well, so there's a few things that seem to be pretty motivating when you're exercising with a partner. And I think a lot of the stuff that we've done can help somebody who is looking for a good exercise partner. In other words, what's the most motivating exercise partner? How should you choose your exercise partner?
Okay.
And so
how should you choose your exercise partner?
Yeah, well, I don't have all the answers to that,
okay.
But there's at least a couple of things that that should be brought to mind. One of them is you really want to choose somebody who's a little bit better than you.
Okay.
Somebody somebody who's, let's say, a little bit more active than you, or if you are, it kind of depends on what kind of exercise it is that you might be doing as well. So if your goal is to, let's say, cycle longer or harder than you normally would, or just to be more active, to walk farther, or for a longer duration than you normally would, then a good partner is somebody who is doing it a little bit longer or harder than you typically would, right? And that kind of gives you something to shoot for, right? So being able to, compare yourself to somebody else who's sort of got those qualities that you want, and in particular is a little bit more active than you, that seems to be pretty important.
What about the person who is the better person? Have you looked at anything about, does being the better person in the exercise routine or whatever activity motivate, or are they motivated by helping other people?
They can be. We didn't study that in particular,
Okay.
And other people have, although not sort of in the context of exercise.
Okay.
And the tricky thing about that, in motivating the stronger person versus the weak link in the group, is that all sorts of things really need to come together in order for that stronger person to be more motivated than they would be if they were just exercising alone. So they need to, whatever it is that you're doing, the task needs to be something that's highly meaningful. For example, maybe the person that you're exercising with, like, you might need to have a really strong relationship with that person, and all kinds of other things. But when you talk about the weaker, when we're talking about the weaker member, the weaker partner, it's a little bit more simple than that. But it is an issue. So in thinking about how we might apply some of the principles that we're studying about exercise partners, you would say, well, what about that stronger partner? We're just going to leave that person out to dry. And
you can't study everything all at once.
You can't study everything all at once, and we do have some ideas on how one could address that, and some ideas for how to study that. But this is sort of where the technology piece comes in too. So what if that stronger partner was also part of another group, right? So maybe you're not the only person that your partner exercises with. And that stronger partner has a exercise partner who's stronger than them. And you could follow that logic on through a series, sort of a chain of people who are stronger and weaker exercise partners. So that's sort of one solution you could simply recommend to people. Well, kind of spread the love a little bit, right? Like find, a partner to be active with in this context, help this guy out a little bit, and then you can challenge yourself with this person over here and sort of create that little community.
You don't always want to do some hardcore workout. Sometimes you just need to stroll. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So that's one way around it. And, you might know people, in your own sort of social network who sort of fit those characteristics, or there are now websites designed to match you up with exercise partners, to help you find people to work out with or just to be active with. I kind of like to make the distinction between exercise and just being active. You can be active in all kinds of ways and not really think about it in terms of, oh, I'm improving my cardiovascular fitness right now. I mean, people like rock climbing, people like going for hikes or just walks, and there are health benefits associated with that, but you might not think of it that way.
So would that essentially be the digital component of the lab, when these websites where you can meet people to do activities with?
Yes and no. So the real reason why we called it the Digital Physical Activity
Okay.
Laboratory. It has to do with the studies that I was just talking about with the exercise partners. And the neat thing about those exercise partners that we that we were studying was that the partner was a virtual partner. So this person wasn't physically present with our participants while they were doing the exercises that we were having them doing. And there was a couple of different reasons for that. One being that if it's a virtual partner, we could more easily sort of manipulate the different characteristics of that partner.
Okay.
So
there's more of like a control
There's
factor.
more control, right? So if we want that partner to be able to exercise forever without stopping, which in fact we did, we could manipulate that, right? And in fact,
these are like avatars?
in fact, they were all they were what we can call Confederates.
Oh, okay.
So they were actually video recordings of real people.
Okay.
But we could tell them to come and wear certain clothes, or we could have their video just loop so that they would exercise.
Oh, wow.
Forever if we wanted them
Okay.
to, and a number of other things.
So you would manipulate what they were wearing as well.
We didn't actually
Oh,
do
okay.
that in the sense that we tested
Okay.
how that would affect performance. Although there are some studies that have looked at that, and some interesting ones that we can talk about if you want to. But we did.
Don't wear a muumuu.
Yeah. So like, so in one study we had participants come in for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, a couple times a week. And each time they came in, they exercised with their virtual partner. And in this one, they were riding a exercise bike. And they were partnered up with the same person, and they could see this video feed. We said, it's a live video feed of your partner.
Yeah.
And your task is just to exercise as long as you can, right? And each day their partner would have different clothes on, which is where that comes in. But the real interesting thing about that study was, some of the participants would come in and they just exercise by themselves. We'd say, hop on the bike, and they were exercising at about like 65% of like their max, what they could do if they really tried, all out. So there's 65, 70%, I think it was. And so some people came in, they exercised by themselves. Some people came in and they had their partner, who, it was really just a person like on the other side of this video feed that they could see. Like they weren't on a team with them or anything.
Okay.
They didn't know they didn't know a whole lot about this person other than that they were like, similar to
doing
them.
the same
Yeah, they
thing.
were like another college student in another laboratory somewhere. And
was it a live stream or was it a recorded video?
This was another recorded video.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we have to do to
Yeah.
sort of achieve the conditions that we want.
Right.
To test the things that we want to test. Right.
Yeah.
And then in another condition, we said, okay, now you're going to be partnered with this person, and you're on a team with this person. And by the way, they're 40% better than you at riding that bike. Really, I mean, we had them ride the bike once, sort of baseline, and then we'd say, okay, you rode the bike for 10 minutes, and you're going to do it again with this partner.
Okay.
And your partner, the first time that they rode the bike, they rode it for 14 minutes.
Okay.
Right. So
the person
they're a
already
little bit better
knows.
than you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And also, you guys are working towards a team score.
Okay.
So you're collaborating with this person, right? You're on a team with this person, and your team score is going to be the time of the person who quits first.
Oh, no.
Yes.
So there's it's kind of cool because you kind of take away the element of competition, but then you still include it by, I'm going to let this, the person might feel that they would let their partner down if they stopped first.
That's exactly right. So it's this idea of being really indispensable,
Yeah.
for the group. you know, I know that I'm the weak link here.
Yeah, right.
So like, I really don't want to let that person down, even though like I have really no idea who this person is, and I just met them, and that's sort of like, you know, one of the really cool things that you can study in these kinds of laboratory experiments. You know, it's sort of like, what are those sort of innate, you know, human biases that we have or tendencies about, you know, relating to other people or working with other people, working in groups and things that we can study. I mean, you know, once you control for all those other things, like we don't have to worry about whether or not, you know, that's your friend or your history with that person or anything like that, right? And so,
oh no, and then you just loop this video.
And then we just loop the video. It's true. So,
oh, it's like a hamster in a wheel.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. I had some issues with that. You know, sitting in the laboratory. This study in particular I did when I was still doing my PhD, and yeah, I had a few moments where I was like, man, I feel really sleazy about this or something, you know. But a little deception is kind of necessary, and which is also why we couldn't name the lab, you know, the digital, you know, interpersonal or the digital relationship physical activity laboratory or something like that. You know, we really don't want subjects coming to the lab to know that we're studying these kinds of things, because the cat will be
out of the bag.
Yeah. But so in this study, the exercise bike study, what we found was kind of interesting. So when you ride that bike alone, and we say, okay, just ride as long as you can. You can stop whenever you want. Just ride as long as you can. And 65%, 70%, whatever it is, I mean, that's not that. It's really not that hard compared to, you know, like a 90% or something like this, obviously. But so if you rode by yourself, it was they quit after about 10 minutes. Okay. If you rode with that other person who you weren't on a team with, but you could just see them, and you knew that they were a little bit better than you as well, but like, you know, you weren't, you know, you're not on a team, you're not working towards a team score or anything like that. You rode for about what was it, like 15, 16 minutes.
Okay.
But if you were also the weak link, you were on a team with that person, and you were also the weak link, you rode for at least 20 minutes. And what we had our participants do is they came in over a series of 6 different sessions. Okay, so 6 different bouts of exercise with their partner. And the interesting thing that happens when you're the weak link is that motivation actually increases over time. Whereas if you're just riding alone, you just kind of stay stagnant, maybe even, you know, sort of decrease a little bit over time. And if you're riding alongside somebody else, you know, I kind of think about this kind of condition as though you're somebody in the fitness center.
Yeah.
Right. And you're running on a treadmill, and then there's just, you know, somebody else over there running on a treadmill next to you. And you're going 5 miles an hour, and they're going 6 miles an hour. You know,
I totally look over.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So that's motivating, but it's not as motivating as also being the weak link. And so you can see we've sort of teased out some of these different factors or, you know, conditions that you could, you know, experience in exercising with other people, and there are a number of other ones as well. But in the end, by week 6, the last session, which was session number 6 in this experiment, the subjects who were the weak link were exercising over 200% longer than people who were just exercising by themselves. Wow. And this was still more than those people who were exercising sort of alongside that other person. Very cool. Yeah.
I just feel like that has a lot of, when you go back and think about sort of technology, and when I think of, I know maybe you've talked, or in the past you've talked a little bit about video games and how video games then push the envelope as well. Yeah. And I guess that you're kind of going against or with the computer.
Yeah. Well, the way that the video game stuff
Yeah.
meshes with my research really has to do with the study that I just mentioned and the other ones related to that study that I've done, where we got some funding from an organization called the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and they had this initiative a few years ago, a whole bunch of money that they awarded to different researchers for studying design principles for games, or what they call health games. So any game that
like Zumba?
had the goal of I mean, I suppose you could call Zumba a game. But any game that had the
or
goal
Dance Dance
of,
Revolution?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
so video games were part of this, and there were a number of groups around the country who were studying video games, but design principles of those games. So in other words, how would you design that game?
Okay.
To improve health, not whether or not it improves health. You also have to know a little bit of something about why you think that thing works, right? And so they gave us some money to study design principles for exercise video games, right? So in other words, if you had the opportunity to design an exercise video game to be most motivating, how would you design that thing? So we said, well, you would have an exercise partner in there. Right,
You
and
could
that
have like
exercise
a
partner
hologram that rides the bike with you or something.
Yeah, it would be, you would have an exercise partner who would exercise with you, and they would have these characteristics about them. Right, they would be a little bit better than you most of the time. They'd be similar to you in a lot of ways. Right, it would not too different, because we want you to be able to compare yourself to that person. And there was a number of other things that we studied as well. We don't want them to be like way, way better than you.
Right.
We don't want them to be, too similar to you in terms of, how much effort that they're giving or their performance on, the tasks that you're doing. And so the idea is that, in studying all of these different design features, that they might ultimately make their way into an exercise video game or some other type of health game, where the goal is to motivate somebody to do something.
Interesting. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I don't. So let me backtrack a little bit and just say I don't necessarily study video games.
Right.
I study design principles.
Okay.
Of games or of technology, I suppose you could say, in the broader sense.
Do you feel like you have been able to apply what you found in the running study to design the principles of video game design?
Well, we haven't I haven't created a video game yet, and that might be in my future somewhere. But what I am doing, and the place where I think these ideas are going to, take hold, is in doing some community work. There's a local organization in Manhattan called Independent. It's run by Michelle Bradfield, who actually works in engineering, and she's a military spouse, and she has been putting together a health promotion program for military spouses who are largely a largely neglected population, and in need of some support. And so we've been working together along with some other colleagues in creating a physical activity and health promotion program, where I think some of the ideas that we've been talking about will ultimately, manifest themselves into the program, mostly because the idea that we have for this program is that it's going to be a group-based program, right? So people will be participating in groups and hopefully exercising in groups and in social support groups with one another, and really sort of harnessing those those social influences that we think are important in being physically active.
I think another social influencing factor for exercise is music.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I know you brought, that's my segue. So I know
Okay.
I know you brought
Yeah.
some music with you.
Mhm.
And the first song we're going to play is by Eric Bibb.
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about who this man is and how you got into him?
Yeah. So I discovered Eric Bibb maybe a couple of years ago, and Eric Bibb is he's a fingerstyle blues musician. He's a fantastic blues guitarist, and I've been trying to learn the fingerstyle blues myself, and have been using him as sort of a role model.
Is
to
he
do that.
your partner who's more experienced than you?
Yeah, but except he's about 1,000% better than
Yeah,
me.
right.
You'll hear. I mean, he's really got an incredible sound, and he plays with a lot of emotion, as any good blues musician will. And I think technically he's just one of the most impressive guitarists I think I've ever seen. And so this song was the one that really caught my ear when I was browsing. I was watching YouTube, and I know you got, well, this one.
Maybe,
Yeah,
possibly.
maybe.
I know.
This is the song that really caught my ear, and I was really motivated to learn, and really got me into fingerstyle blues.
All right, let's check him out. This is Eric Bibb. And what's the name of the song?
This one, I think, is called Saucer and Cup.
That's right. Saucer and Cup by Eric Bibb on What's Happening in Your World. We're talking with Dr. Irwin about motivation and exercise on 91.9 KSDB Manhattan.
She likes her coffee, I got to have my tea. I don't try to change her, she don't try to change me. Ever since we met, everything's looking up. We go together like a saucer and cup. She's like the sunshine after weeks of rain. Her loving disposition, sweet like sugar cane. And ever since we met up on the Gold Coast, everything is new. We go together like the grass in the morning dew. And that's true. She's all I ever wanted in a woman in the past. It's nothing less than destiny. She was born to be my gal. Ever since we met, everything is grand. You know you're looking at a satisfied man. She likes her coffee now, I got to have my tea. I don't try to change her, she don't try to change me. Ever since we met, everything's looking up. We go together like a saucer and cup.
You're listening to What's Happening in Your World on 91.9 KSDB Manhattan. I'm Erica, and I'm here talking with Dr. Irwin from the Department of Kinesiology.
Very good.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out how to say that word.
Nailed it.
Thanks. And you just heard a song by Led Zeppelin called Traveling Riverside Blues, which you also picked for us.
I did. Yeah, the Led Zeppelin was one of my childhood favorites and still is. I mean, I think they're the greatest band of all time. And that song in particular is kind of an interesting one, like you mentioned, because it's an old Robert Johnson song that isn't on any album.
Yeah.
The
original
only
is
played
like
live, and Zeppelin picked it up and rearranged it a little bit. And also kind of interesting, it brings up an interesting point about Led Zeppelin that I only recently sort of came to find out, which is that they get a lot of flack, or at least for a lot of their older stuff, for ripping off blues musicians. I mean, a lot of their songs, like Traveling Riverside Blues, I mean, is obviously just somebody else's song, and I don't think they claim to have written it. I'm not aware of that, but even some of their songs with different titles are strikingly similar to
other blues songs,
to other songs or blues songs or otherwise. But
okay.
But that song in particular is one of my favorites. Particularly, I like the slide guitar. I've been getting into the slide guitar a little bit lately too. And
all right.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting into guitar?
I think I got my first guitar when I was 14.
Okay.
14 or 15. Yeah, my stepfather bought it for me for Christmas one year.
Okay.
And it was this dinky, piece of crap,
Plastic?
classical
Okay.
guitar, and it worked fine. And it, just over the years grew into electric and then some more acoustics. And I've basically just been noodling for 17 years now, and have gotten to the point where last year I took my first lesson last year or the year before or something.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Yeah.
Where are you taking lessons?
Well, I was taking lessons at Rick's Music Shop, which is right here in town, with Brady Atkinson. And Rick's Music Shop is a fantastic little music shop. It's kind of hidden. It's over by Dillon's on the east side.
East side?
Yeah, east side. What?
Yeah.
and Brady Atkinson was my instructor, and now he's one of my best friends in
cool.
town here. So he just comes over and we jam at my house.
Oh, nice.
He doesn't give me lessons, but I learn a lot from playing with people who are better than me.
There you go.
So.
And how is because I know you had said with Eric Bibb you're like trying to learn that song. How's that song, the Saucer and a Cup? How's that going?
Well, it's going. I think it's going well. I've recorded it a few times on my own, and every time I play it, it comes out a little bit different. So I think it's never, really finished or anything. It's just something that. Whatever. It just keeps evolving, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that's going pretty well. He's actually got a few other songs. I was talking before about how impressive I think he is, technically on the guitar. And I think the song that we just listened to is one of his least technical performances. And he's got some others out there that are just out of this world. So I'm trying to learn some of those as well. Try to up my chops a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you able to travel with your guitar at all?
No, I wish. I think I've only traveled with a guitar once, and I didn't even travel with my nice guitar, the one I actually like to play. It was an old beat up one, and I played it once on a 5-day trip, and that was it.
Yeah.
So I was it's just not that practical.
And you recently came back from traveling, right?
I did.
Yeah, so talk about your adventure for the summer.
Yeah.
Your summer vacation.
Yeah, well, I was really fortunate and excited this summer to have gone to Europe. I was in Europe. I'd never been before. And it started out as a conference in Scotland, in Edinburgh.
Oh, cool.
And I was there for a few days, and after that, took a flight over to Amsterdam. I was in Amsterdam for about a week. I visited a friend in Leipzig in Germany. I spent a week in Prague. I spent 5 days in Switzerland. I spent a week with a friend in Ibiza.
Oh, wow.
spent-
I've always wanted to go
I
there.
spent 5 days in Barcelona, and then I spent about 5 days with a friend in Paris.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were able to see a lot of friends when you were there.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. A lot of my friends just happened to be in the modern languages department
Okay.
here at K-State. And one of them was in Leipzig, Germany, running a sort of like a study abroad type of program. It's like a 3-week intensive program, or maybe even longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
So she was over there with some students, and we met up for a few days in Leipzig. And then another friend is a professor of French, and
Oh, cool.
he lives in Paris, or I think he pretty much goes to Paris every summer.
Yeah.
His name's Bob Clark, and we hung out for a few days in Paris.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why learning foreign languages are so cool, because you're almost required to have to go abroad.
Yeah. I mean, you need that like immersive experience,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, the language changes, so you have to stay au courant.
Yeah. I, however, just have friends who speak languages.
Yeah, there you go. Or you have that.
Every city that I went to, I just took out my phone
Okay.
and kind of, Googled all the basic words, please, thank you. Actually, the thing that I memorized in each place, I'm ashamed to say, was, "Hi, do you speak English?"
Yeah, right.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Whatever language that was in,
Yeah.
Czech or Spanish or French or something like that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I found those words, and I made it my background on my phone, so I could just whip it out as a little quick guide wherever I was.
Oh, that's smart.
I took 7 years of Spanish throughout high school and college, so I knew a little bit of Spanish. Not like I've been speaking it that regularly or anything like that, but it was useful.
So what were some like highlights, lowlights of the trip? What was sort of like, do you have like kind of a top memory of?
Yeah, well, there were a few, and I think the most memorable parts of the trip were with some of the people that I met while I was over there. So I was in Amsterdam, and I was in a coffee shop, a normal coffee shop, and I was sitting there. I was actually doing a little bit of work, and I overheard this woman talking to the barista about setting up that night for a show. So they were going to have a concert there that night. Not concert, but just a little somebody come in and have a little jam session. And I had been looking for a place in town to go listen to some good live music, and so I asked her. I went up to her and I said, are you playing here later tonight? Is there somebody playing here? And the answer took around 30 minutes.
Okay.
And she told me all about who she was and how she got here or into Amsterdam. And yes, there was going to be some music there, but there was also music all these other places in Amsterdam. And her name is Cindy Perez.
Okay.
And she was, she grew up in New York and moved to Amsterdam. I think she was chasing a boy over there.
As you do.
About 20 years ago, and she just never left. And she is a blues musician.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Very eclectic, I would say. I mean, very unique, I want to say. And she told me all about the music scene in Amsterdam and made some recommendations and told me about some of her shows that were coming up. And we had a really good conversation right there in the coffee shop. And she said, "You know what, why don't you come over for breakfast tomorrow? And, and we'll hang out." And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, and her house actually wasn't too far from where I was staying. So,
nice.
So the next day, I showed up at her apartment. And met her partner, and we hung out. We played some guitar. We listened to some of her music and some of her favorite music.
Oh,
the
that's
places where she get like
awesome.
inspiration and stuff. And just had a real nice time. And talked about life, and just had a real sort of human conversation, and that was a really that was a really powerful and memorable experience for me, and we still keep in touch on Facebook, of course. But one of the highlights of my trip.
That's cool. I love those random experiences that can happen when you're traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So what are some things that you packed? Because I know when you're traveling, packing can be kind of a huge deal. What do you bring? How do you anticipate scenarios, weather, and if you were visiting colleagues, you have to like navigate professional attire. And did you just carry a backpack?
This is an excellent question, because a lot of time went into the preparation and planning and packing for this trip, and I'm very proud to say that I think I did pretty darn well.
Nice.
So the answer is you bring as little as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought things, articles of clothing and whatnot that were very versatile, right? So basically I brought 4 shirts, a few pairs of socks, a few pairs of underwear, 2 pairs of pants, and a pair of shorts, 1 pair of shoes.
One pair of shoes for the whole time.
1 pair of shoes, and a pair of flip-flops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I bought these shoes. They're Merrell sort of. They're not hiking shoes, but they're rugged casual shoes.
Okay.
Right. And I figured those would be great for the conference, and I was going to be doing all kinds of urban walking.
Okay.
I'd walked probably 10 miles a day.
Oh, wow.
And then did some hiking, some mountain hiking in Switzerland. I was up in the Jungfrau region, which is near Interlaken.
Okay.
I was staying in Interlaken, Switzerland, which is a beautiful little town, kind of nestled in between a couple of lakes, and right next to the tallest peak in Europe.
Wow.
And so, I knew that my shoes were going to have to hold up for that, and they did. They weren't the best. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but for my trip, I think I did about as good as I could have. And so I brought as little as possible. I could have brought less, honestly. I mean, I wore my jeans once.
Okay, yeah, right.
Wore my jeans once. There was a couple of shirts I didn't even wear. You really don't need that much, and I think that's one of the really awesome things about traveling or camping. Just doing things outdoors, which I also like to do quite a bit, is you realize how little you actually need, and that's such a refreshing thing. It just helps you simplify things and allows you to experience other things, right? So that was a very refreshing experience, and very proud of my packing skills.
Nice.
I also had, it also had to be light enough, and small enough to fit in overhead bins on the planes, and I actually brought my computer as well. And
okay. That was the next thing, sort of devices are always a vice, for people.
Sure.
I can't live without this or that. And
yeah. Well, so I brought my computer and I brought my phone, although I turned my phone off. I basically just used the GPS on there. And there's some really cool apps out there for navigating and finding cool things in cities and whatnot without cell phone service. And but I brought my computer because I needed to do some work while I was over there. And in fact, my best days over there were the ones where I did a little bit of work in the morning, so I could then go out and be just sort of, I was more free to experience the things I was doing, because I didn't have things lingering over my head. And I submitted a grant while I was traveling. And
oh my gosh!
About to submit a couple of papers. I'm pretty happy with how things went.
Yeah, work and play.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So what advice would you give to people who maybe want to go travel or want to go on a backpacking trip, but maybe aren't sure?
Well, the first thing is that it's completely doable. And if you just do a simple Google search for, travel the world, you'll find a bazillion different websites, blogs, articles written by different people who have already done this. And one of the first things they tell you is how easy it is, right? Because they want you to experience this, they want you to experience the world, the same things that they've experienced. And if you're just talking about, a couple month trip or something like that, that's way doable. What a lot of people do, I'm learning, and I learned when I was doing the research for my trip, is they just drop everything and travel indefinitely. And, it's the story, I quit my cubicle job. I went to, Europe or Southeast Asia with $1,000 and never came home. And that was, 15 years ago, and they they write really good articles, very digestible strategies for how to prepare for something like this, both, physically and, financially and mentally, that, will remove so many of the barriers that you currently that might have, that are keeping you from doing something like this. And so I would say to those people, you can do it, and just do a little bit of reading. And there's some really good people write really good books on these kinds of experiences as well, and they're inspirational, they're practical, and I'd be surprised if after reading one of those books you didn't have the travel bug,
yeah. Or start small.
The wanderlust, as they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into a little bit more music.
Cool.
And I think the next one we're going to play is, we got some Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, all right. Right. Yeah. The 90s music.
Yeah.
Here. Okay.
We're going to rewind, go back to 1990 something, and we have some Stone Temple Pilots. This is a song called Plush.
Beautiful.
All right, on 91.9 KSDB Manhattan, this is What's Happening in Your World.
Where
You're listening to What's Happening in Your World on KSDB 91.9 Manhattan. That was Stone Temple Pilots Plush. I'm Erica, and I'm here talking with Dr. Irwin, who is just told us about your big adventurous summer trip, which sounds amazing. And we were also talking a little bit about motivation and how to get out there. And since we only have, I don't even want to say it, 3 weeks maybe or so left.
Oh boy.
Before the kind of the school year starts. I know, I don't want to. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to like call it out there. But I wanted to ask, like, what can people do in the community? What is available in Manhattan so people can kind of still get outside and do stuff?
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of things here. I think probably the biggest barrier for people right now is the heat.
Yeah.
Although that kind of waxes and wanes a little bit. But there are options here, from doing things in the park or joining, some kind of sport league or something like this, going hiking at the Kanza or at Tuttle Creek. There's a number of really cool parks around here that I discovered over the past couple of years that are really nice for just going for walks. And I think one of the biggest barriers that people have about being active is that they think that they need to do some kind of high intensity, all out exercise. And there's some benefits associated with that, but really just like go for a walk, and do whatever kind of activity you like to do that makes you happy. But it can be something as simple as going for a walk. And you don't need a whole lot of equipment to do that.
Yeah, you just need 2 feet.
2 feet. Yeah. So hopefully you have 2 feet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, if you're lucky enough.
Yeah. Good point.
How do you feel about CrossFit?
CrossFit? Yeah. I've never done it before.
Okay. Because that's super high intensity. And I know there's a lot of people out there who it's kind of like the big trend now in exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about it. We have a CrossFit laboratory in our department.
Oh, interesting.
Run by Katie Heinrich. And she just got a huge grant, $1 million grant to do a bunch of research. Basically developing a training program for soldiers sort of based on the CrossFit model. So,
okay.
But I've never done it before. I'm aware that there's a lot of good things about it, and there's some controversy about it, but I've never done it. So.
Oh, cool. All right. And then how can students get involved with either the digital lab or with any of the research that you guys are doing? Yeah,
the best way to get involved is to contact me, and you can find me online through the K-State and our department website. Or a quick Google search. You could shoot me an email and say that I'm interested in helping out in the lab, and we can hopefully work something out.
All right,
it's really
cool.
that simple.
All right, well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and you've been listening to What's Happening in Your World on KSDB 91.9 Manhattan.